Welcome back to the Mindsets podcast. Today I'm joined by Stevie Warr. We're going to have a little chat about where he's got to in sport and fitness. So first of all, would you like to give a little bit of an introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, as Angus has said, Stevie Warr. I'm currently competing in natural bodybuilding. My specialist category is classic physique, but as of in a week's time, I'll be branching out into men's physique as well. So, we'll see how that goes.
Cool. So when I first sort of knew you, we're going back to primary school time.
Yeah.
And things are a little bit different now.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say. We grew up, we both went to the same set of schools, and sort of the sport I remember you dominating in was rugby when you were a number 8 and you just ran everyone over. But I hope you don't mind me saying this, you were larger than most other people.
Yeah.
So it was a rolling thunder kind of thing. But rugby still lights your fire?
I work in rugby, so I work at Harlequins.
Right.
But in the foundation side there, it's a bit of an odd one. So are you happy if I just sort of cover
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so initially, again, when I first met Angus in primary school, I was what you probably describe as like a chonkosaurus. I was a heavy kid, so at 10 was 10 stone, but also was born with severe dyspraxia.
Right.
So the doctors told my parents that I'd never be coordinated enough to ride a bike or kick a football.
Wow.
And coming from my dad being a semi-pro footballer and was an all-round athlete. So it got to the point he was told that and literally threw all of his medals into the bin because he's if my son's never going to be able to experience any of this, then I don't want it there taunting him. But they put me into judo from a very young age to gain some kind of a coordination and where I'd fall over a lot. Basically learn how to fall safely. And then from that, was never particularly good at that to start with. But then as you said, getting to secondary school and grew from summer. So going from year 6 into secondary school, went from 5'2" to 5'8". So rocking up and everyone's 5 foot and then you are a giant of a year 7. So then again that's when I started really playing rugby and when you're twice the size of the other kids and you're running at them, it is a mismatch.
Did you get some sort of satisfaction in that back then, do you think? Because I remember seeing it and it was very satisfying watching you run with the ball.
I mean, it's a weird one. I was quite I was quite an angry kid, particularly when when you get all of them changes in your body, not just the physical, but the chemicals. So, you get this massive hit of testosterone. And I can remember being really angry, going into secondary school.
Really?
Yeah, and rugby was where you could just vent it. So I remember you get the ball and, I coach a lot of players. When you coach, you never run at a player, always attack the space. But for me, I just want to run at someone as hard as I physically could and you want to try and hurt them. And not in necessarily because you dislike that person, but you just got this anger inside,
Riled up kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's weird because when you look into it and you're everybody or every young male gets testosterone sort of released into their body at different ages and different amounts. You get some kids and around that time I had acne as well, which is a telltale sign of having high testosterone levels. So I think that probably all when I look back at it, that makes sense there. But yeah, sort of rugby was the sport then that I latched to and was quite good at that. But then sort of as I got into latter secondary school, also got quite good at judo then. So my coordination really started to develop there. Yeah.
So are you still doing martial arts or judo, or did you leave that behind?
No. So my goal was to get my black belt in judo. I think it was as the rugby really took off, that's when sort of I kind of had enough of judo, realised the importance of it, but I promised my dad I'd get my black belt. So I got my black belt, and then sort of as I got that was when I was playing at my best level of rugby. So that was just going into college.
Right.
So we were playing in what would be the championships, so one under the Bucks. But again, that's where you're going from being a giant and physically dominating, and then all of a sudden you are the smallest guy in the pack by literally 10, 15 kilo.
Yeah.
And that's where the judo side of it came in, because it's when you're in close quarters, you're in a breakdown, you're up against a guy that's a lot bigger than you. Judo is all about taking someone's momentum and using it against them. So it's actually I'm giving away this physical dominance to the other guy, but I know what I'm doing and that guy doesn't. So you can like bend them up in ways where like, how's this smaller guy doing that? But the issue you've still got is, you know, I don't particularly want to have many like 20 stone guys running straight at me, because it does take a physical toll on the body.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll get into physical toll, because obviously with different sports, one thing that I found having conversations with other people is, there's a big adjustment phase between changing sort of discipline. But with judo, is it still of interest to you? Do you still sort of pay attention to what goes on in the judo world, or is it kind of is it a closed chapter?
I think judo is for me. Like, again, I've got siblings who were England squad, team GB. So like the whole time, even like when I'd stopped really doing it, but they were still doing it, you're interested in that. But then obviously, you know, there's not a lot of money in judo. So a lot of good judokas then go into MMA. You know, like, look at Ronda Rousey that went into the UFC, and like where you've both done the same martial art, you're like, you want to follow them and see them do well. And then I thought of like, once you get into the UFC, then you're like I really love it as a spectacle. Sorry. So for me, like my definition of sport, like in my own head, is two people in a confined area, like in a cage, just, you know, sort of taking all the skill, all of their development, honing, and using it to try and beat the other person. And like, you know, you're watching as much as you love like a slugfest, it's having that appreciation for the technical side of it. So whether it's like the grappling and trying to maneuver someone into a certain position to get an armbar or something like that, and there's actually like real enjoyment as much in that as much as there is like just seeing two people standing there and just going at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something else I wanted to bring into this conversation of you transitioning between sports. Am I right in thinking that you're the oldest sibling?
Yes.
Yes. So you have a younger brother and a younger sister?
Got two younger brothers and a sister.
How did that come into play? Obviously, with brothers, there's usually a bit of competition.
Yeah.
I remember, I think you've got a brother, Charlie.
Yeah.
So he was quite good at rugby as well.
Yeah.
Did you feel at any point that you were kind of the role model, or was it a competition in the family to be better at different sports?
It was heavily competitive. So like you'll get a lot of siblings, say going through primary and secondary school, like they'll fight at home.
Yeah.
Whereas in my house, it was actually like a UFC event, because we're not just fighting, but we're all skilled fighters. So it's not a case of like you're standing there, you're just hitting like your sibling. Like, we are looking for arm bars, we're looking for chokes, and it's one thing like looking to do it, but then knowing how to do it as well. And that's something like my dad encouraged. So he's almost like refereeing it, and it's, you know, as long as no one gets seriously hurt, it's practice.
Yeah, true.
And you see it with like a lot of like successful martial artists. It came from them, you know, like at home having siblings to compete with. So you look at like your purposeful practice and getting in like your reps. That's one way of doing it. I think on the competitive side, I was like growing up quite frustrated, because, you know, I was the first to do judo, and then I get a brother and a sister coming in where, you know, I got up to number 2 in the country. Charlie gets into the England squad. I just missed out on that. Jay gets into Team GB. I'm the first one to get into rugby. Trialed for Harlequins. Charlie gets into Harlequins, and you're like, sort of everything you're doing, there's then siblings coming in.
Yeah.
But then, you know, went to uni, did a degree in sports coaching. That's actually like one of the modules I studied was, you know, you look heavily into actually, you know, if you've got a house or you've got siblings and they all do the same sport, the younger siblings tend to be better, because at a younger age they get in more practice against more skilled or, you know, more physically dominant, I guess, an opponent. So then you've got to learn other ways of beating that person. So then when you're going up against someone who is the same age or same size as you, well, that's easy, because I spent all these hours like competing against someone that is, you know, whether more dominant or more skilled.
I think that's something that I can genuinely say I did sort of miss in my childhood. Actually, I've got an older sister. She was never really into sport, and so most of the time my competition was with a bin in the garden if I was playing football, or I had to sort of rely on friends or the actual organised sport to get any sort of level of competition. And I definitely did notice that most of my mates, especially if they were the oldest, their younger brothers or younger sisters ended up being arguably much better than them at sport. Yeah. But I do find that you'll find those siblings tend to follow in the footsteps. And I don't know if you look back in hindsight and think, maybe I was a bit of a sort of, not an idol, but a sort of role model for the sort of sport, because it's very rare that you get one or two older siblings doing a sport and the third one goes off and does something completely different. Yeah. So do you ever look back and think, I might have been useful for them?
I probably from their point of view, it's them seeing me doing something, and I guess it's like that the natural, competitiveness that they want to do it better. But then
Sure.
I can flip that round now because we've got a younger brother, Kane, who coming up, they're like, you've got particularly, for example, the Howard, where you've got these three siblings who have gone off and like if the Howard had like a Hall of Fame for sport, you got three siblings that be on there because we all dominated in like lots of different sports.
Yeah.
And then they hear that there's this fourth sibling coming in. You're like, this has got to be like, this kid's skill level is going to be unreal because he comes from a house of judokas, karate, like rugby, both versions of rugby as well, and a couple of other sports mixed in. Like he's going to dominate, and he was an absolute like gamer. He's like, I guess it's where like we were getting travelled around and we were really into our sport. And for Kane, it was almost that, you're in two mindsets. You either see that your siblings are doing well and you want to step up and try and be better than them. Whereas I guess for him, it's that, I don't want to do that. And it's coming back and like, someone's got a broken leg and you're seeing like their rehab they're going through, or like, there's other difficulties that you get through playing like, competitive sport. And I guess for Kane, that was a turn off. So he's like, actually, do you know what? Me and his mates as well, they're all gamers. That probably helps. So I'd rather sit here play on my Xbox and not have to take like the
Fair
physical
enough.
beating.
Yeah. I think things are changing definitely as a result of COVID and lockdown. I mean, I played on my PlayStation a lot, and it's still competitive. But you're right, you're not taking that physical beating.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to actually ask you about your transition kind of from rugby.
Yeah.
So you did you played rugby, like you said, you were playing it through college, and then you have gone into a job around rugby.
Yeah.
What does the job involve, and do you think your passion for rugby kind of drove you towards wanting to do that?
I think it did and it didn't. So I stopped playing rugby when I got to uni because in college was like my massive turn off.
Right.
So I was playing at at a really good level for a 16 to 18-year-old.
Sure.
But there's a flip side of that in a team sport where the higher the level you play, the more egos you meet and are your teammates. So I actually, like, through college, half my team I absolutely hated. And there's stories of like we'd be in the gym and I just got my black belt and one of the guys had like called me out and was like, it's a pajama sport and it's gone to grab me, and like you grab a black belt in judo, their first instinct is just to flip you, and I flipped him and bruised his ribs and put him out for a month. And like the coach has only seen it and he's like, why did you grab him? Like, why are you taking the piss out of this guy? But then you've actually put your hands on a guy that knows what to do. So it was sort of, for me, I was done with rugby at that point. I'm like, turned away from playing, but then going to uni and doing sports coaching, and that's where like you go back to, playing video games. For as long as I played video games or FIFA, I was a career mode guy. I was never playing online against other people.
I see, yeah.
Because for me, it's like, working with players and developing a team. That's something that like I was really into. So doing sports coaching, and then like having I never wanted to be a rugby coach.
Right.
But week 2 at uni, Harlequins came in, gave a talk, the community sector did, and they were like, right, if anyone wants to trial to be a coach as part of our community team, like we've got trials coming up. Went to the trials, and out of like 20 guys that turned up, there was 2 of us that got picked, and they were like, I didn't have any coaching qualifications. They were like, we will pay and put you through all of them.
Wow.
And this was just at the end of the 2015 World Cup. So I rocked up for my first day, and I'm actually doing it with like, the guys on my course, the guys who've just come back from the World Cup. Wow. I was the first guy out, and I've got to coach them how to pass the ball. And I'm like, I've literally just paid to go to a stadium and watch you guys pass the ball. And now I've got to coach you how to do it. So that was a challenge, but really enjoyed it. Like where I wasn't enjoying the playing side anymore, but actually the coaching is, and that's something I still love. So I still coach like men's rugby now. And I think it was that, getting to work with guys where they've still got a love for the game, but also like, they're very good players. And it's, well, I don't want to get the best out of me in rugby, but I want to get the best out of these guys. And how can I do it? And how can I work with them around doing it?
So I've done a bit of coaching in some sports that I've done throughout the back end of being the kid that played sport into even in the last year. I've always felt sometimes when I was being coached that sometimes I felt a little bit let down in hindsight by the coaching I didn't receive or the lack of effort. And so, do you ever get it with a player or a set of individuals where you don't want to let them down in the same way you were?
Let them down in the same way that I was.
Or you're giving them a level of coaching you wish you once received.
Yeah, no, do you know what, in rugby, 100%. So like, me and you in rugby, we've got a lot of coaches who have coached the both of us through secondary school.
Yeah.
And if I said one of them in particular was really bad, you could probably picture that guy straight away. Where like we'd rock up and his team talk is, we beat this school 3-0 in football and like, I don't know, 29-37 in netball. So really we should be beating this school. And I'm like, that's not you're not telling me how to go at them and beat them. You're just telling me that on paper we're a better school.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, like as part of my RFU level 2, I had to give an example of good coaching I've received and poor coaching.
Right.
And I'm sat there with these guys from the RFU and I'm telling them this horrific example and they're like, you've made that up. And I'm like, I swear to God. Like, if you really want, I can go and introduce you to this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that having, and I guess that's, you look at it from a playing point of view.
Yeah.
Having good examples in your sport and having poor examples and being like, well, what can I do to avoid, and whether it's, in your own game, making a mistake, the big question is, what can I do to avoid doing that again?
Yeah.
Or if I'm doing something good, what can I do in order to turn that from a strength into like what I'd call a super strength?
Yeah.
Because there's that, you need individuality even in a team sport.
Yeah.
Everybody, I believe, gives something a little bit different to the next guy to make that team the best it possibly can be.
Yeah.
And as a coach, you're trying to get that out the guys. And I guess initially, I think when you really start off early in your coaching, it's looking at the bad examples.
Mm-hmm.
But the deeper into it you get, it's, well, actually, what do the best do? But then not just copy and pasting that. It's, well, taking that, how does that adapt into my environment, and then adding it in and putting your signature style onto it.
Right. Okay. See, this is quite interesting for me, and this is going to lead nicely into kind of where you are now.
Yeah.
Because I ran into you about 6 months ago in the Nuffield gym. And first time I'd seen you in ages. First of all, looked in great shape. I was aware, kind of, seen on Facebook what you'd been up to. And we had a little bit of had a small chat about where you were and what you were doing. Do you want to run the people that are listening / watching kind of what you're up to now?
Yeah, so at the minute, I'm prepping for my next bodybuilding competition. I am a week out, so I've literally, as of today, gone into what in bodybuilding you would refer to as either a hell week or a peak week. My last 2 weeks of this experience have definitely been hell weeks, but I'm hoping through like being, I guess, my own coach, I've put myself into a position where this week's going to be a lot easier than the last 2 have.
Now, you've mentioned exactly what I was going to pick up on.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, it's relatively uncommon for people that compete to the level that you're competing at coach themselves.
Yeah.
What's the reasoning behind it?
So, I guess, you boil it back down to when I was at uni and doing a lot of research around, and through personal experience, if you're a player and a coach tells you what to do, you go out there and you do that, and you don't win, whose fault is it? It's not my fault as the player, because you as the coach told me what to do. Right. And also, am I knowledge-wise or tactically-wise the best I can be? No. So, like me as a rugby coach, my big thing, particularly my big push this season, is making the men I work with more intelligent around the game. Because the more intelligent, the better your rugby IQ is, the better a player you're going to be. If you've got a good rugby brain, automatically you're a much better player than you are without a good rugby brain. Like, you could have all the physical skills in the world, all the technical skills, but unless you've got the mental side to apply them and put them together. So I think for me, and I mean, I've got a master's in sports coaching, so when it comes to like the scientific side of sport, I'd like to think I'm pretty well researched in it, but then through having a love for fitness as well, like I've gone out and I've researched into that as well, enough where I'm like, do I want to pay a guy, say £100 a week to tell me something I already know? Or actually, do I want to be, accountable enough to go out there, make mistakes, and I've certainly made a good few mistakes, but learn from them and be better as a result. But then also, like, you boil it down to when I'm in the gym and someone comes to me for advice, I want to give them advice knowing that whatever I recommend, I've put myself through first. So I know firsthand if it works, if it doesn't work, because I don't want to be known as someone that gives out poor advice that then actually as a result could, you know, have a negative impact on that person, whether it's physical, mental, or, you know, anything else.
So have you always, so when you were doing rugby, I assume you were obviously going to the gym and training as part of the team thing. Did that form of training start you in the gym, or did you start coaching yourself into the gym as well?
So I was from 16 to 18. It was compulsory. I went to the gym, like, and that'd be on a Friday. And I'd go and do that, and I might do a couple of gym sessions outside of that on my own. And then, like, the moment I left college, I was like, I don't need to do this again. So for about 2 years, didn't go to the gym. Didn't really do any sport. Now I think about it, it was just more like the coaching side, and like, I was super busy at uni, around like a lot of like work, as well as uni work. And then I was like, oh, you know, I quite fancy getting into the gym at maybe like 19, 20. And all I can remember is I had, you know, my old rugby program from when I was at college. I started doing that, and it was more like strength based, like 6 to 8 reps. And it's really weird, and I think this would be like one of the big things for anyone that does listen to this is like, particularly when you're a guy, you start training and you do like, you know, you do more strength phase, and it's the eating side. Because in my head, like, and from everything I'd seen on like social media and that, in order to be big, you've got to eat big.
Yeah.
So I would go and you probably pack away like 4,000 calories a day, but then you're going into the gym and you're putting on like a kilo a week, but you're getting stronger. You're going in there and your bench is like skyrocketing, your squats are going through the roof, you're hitting all these PBs that like 3-4 months ago you could only dream of. And it got me to the point where going into lockdown, and again, I'd spent like a few years doing this like strength program, and I was at 97 kilo. So I'm 5'8". I don't think any 5'8" guy should be 97 kilo when you're natural, like regardless of what sport you do, because it's not healthy. Like, you know, naturally you can only put on X amount of muscle, and I am, for a 5'8" guy, I'm pretty close to like naturally how much muscle you can pack onto your body. And I'm at the minute, you know, I'm a week out from a comp and I'm 76 kilo.
Big difference.
Well, you're talking about a 21 kilo of difference, where effectively that's about 21 kilo of fat. And I'm stronger now than I was when I was 97 kilo. Going into lockdown, I spent 2 weeks where it's like, right, gyms are closed, but as your training habits change or maybe go non-existent, the diet didn't. And then I sat there and I'm like, something's got to change. So I was like, right, I can't do the heavyweight stuff, so I do more like a bodybuilding. But when I say bodybuilding, more like a higher rep. So, you know, it was like 15 to 20 reps because I had a home gym, but you could only go up to about 70 kilo. So for like a lot of my lifts, that's not a lot. And then I started doing, right, like I've got a lot of free time now, so I started doing some cardio. And I'll never forget the first time I went out for a run, and I was like, I'm going to run to Budgeons and back, which is about 2.5 kilometers there. I got half kilometer in and like thought I was going to die. So I remember stopping in the woods, and I was like, right, give me 2 minutes to get my breath back. And then what I did was I jog, and when I couldn't jog, I'd walk. And when I could jog again, I'd jog. And I got to Budgeons, I did the same thing back. By the end of the week, I could jog to Budgeons and back. By the end of like 2 weeks later, all of a sudden I'm going for like 10-kilometer runs, but enjoying it, you know, and you're like jogging the whole way. And effectively, in 15 weeks, I went from 97 kilo to 77 kilo.
Wow.
So that's like a 20 kilo drop. And what I found was when I dropped the weight, where I'd done all like the strength training for 3 or 4 years, like effectively what I'd done is strip away the body fat, and you've got a physique. And you're like, I've never had abs. Like, I've always been like a chubbier kid. And all of a sudden you strip it away, and you're seeing these abs, you're seeing these veins, and you're like, whoa, like, you know, as soon as the gym opens, I might try and do like a bodybuilding phase here. And it's around that time, like, I really started to, you know, what's this sport over here? Bodybuilding. And for me, it was seeing like a Dorian Yates, who is a guy from England, 6-time Mr. Olympia, famous in the 90s, and seeing his like method of, like, he wasn't a team guy. Like, and it's that, you know, having just come out of rugby where I was put off because of the team element, actually was very like, you know, intrinsic, like mind center, but mentally very strong. So he was nicknamed the Shadow because he'd take himself away for a year, like no one would see him, no one would hear from him, and then he'd rock up at the next Mr. Olympia and be like bigger and better than before. Whereas you got all of like these, and I think that's the thing is, you know, I'm in a sport where there's a lot of arrogant people and a lot of people that like to like show off, and I'm not, you know, I'm not really like that. Like on social media, I might do like 3 or 4 posts a year, and that's to announce I'm competing in a competition, and then I might do like a progress pic at like halfway. But for me, there's a reason why I do that, and we'll probably end up going into that a little bit later. But then, yeah, like got into the bodybuilding, did 6 months of bodybuilding training when the gyms reopened. And then to the UFE, which is the organisation that I compete in, they had their European Championships in London.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I compete in it. In my novice category for classic physique, I won. And then in the open category, I came second, which is what qualified me for the World Championships.
So that was your first ever competition?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a very strong start.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is like, it was actually finding a sport where I didn't have to work in a team, or where like you're responsible for your results.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. And it's like knowing what I had to do differently, but then being able just to go off and almost like mastermind my plan. So like for anyone that does see me in the gym, the one thing I have for every single session is a black book and a pen.
Right.
Because I write in my sessions, like, and it's that there's a lot of science behind the stuff that I do, and it's all in them books. And I'll go back and look through the books to like, right, have I progressed, or where might I be going wrong here?
Yeah.
And I like that sort of like control, almost like control over your own destiny.
Mm-hmm. I think I was always a bit not skeptical. I think that's a bit harsh. But when you told me that you were coaching yourself, I was like, do you know what? I don't really understand this. He's got results. Fair enough. And you wanted to push to the next level. And am I right in thinking you just missed out on your pro card?
Yeah, so that then brings it to my second competition. So last November, I went out to Toronto, competed in the World Championships. So I was on the elite stage. So you've got your pro stage, which is the best of the best in the world, and you've got your elite stage, which is all of the non-professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And I finished 5th in classic physique, and I think I was like 0.6 of a point off getting my pro card, which when you've travelled like, I don't know how many thousands of miles it is, but you travel that far on your own. Like, I'd never been outside of Europe, and there's like all of these barriers that you've like gone through to get there when you're that close. But the weird thing was, and the two, like when I've come off stage, you come off stage and straight away you're like, I know exactly what I need to do now.
Right.
And for this year, I came off stage and I'm like, I know what I need to do. And then I go away, and I normally take a week off from the gym. But when for that whole week, what I'm thinking about is, right, what am I changing in my plan? What am I changing in my diet? Everything for the next 9 months, so that when this next comes around, I know what I need to do to be not just a better version of me, but maybe like a different version depending on what the judges want. Because that's the thing with bodybuilding, is it's not if I score X amount of points, I win. Mm-hmm. It is very much what the judges want. It's a very subjective data as opposed to objective.
So I want to get into that, because I'll be honest, I think I said to you before we started, but I've watched YouTubers do some like enter a bodybuilding event to get clicks and stuff like that. But the general understanding of bodybuilding as a sport, I feel like, is very limited. So there's a few things I want to go through. Is there's different classes.
Yeah. And
I want to go through how you get judged.
Okay.
So what are the different classes? Because you've changed class as well, you said.
Yeah, so this is the first year where I'm doing my class that I feel my physique matches the best, but I also want to trial a different class as well and see if I can get success in that. So the 3 main classes in like male bodybuilding is, you got men's physique, which is where you wear like your board shorts, and that's really like extreme beach body. So legs don't get judged. It's just like super shredded, super conditioned. So you're talking like real good detail in the muscle, good separation between the muscles, and you're not going to be that big. You're just going to be shredded. So if you could picture like you see someone on the beach, and you're like, they're not the biggest guy, but God, that guy's ripped.
Right. Okay.
So then you go into classic physique, which actually no, I'll go into open bodybuilding first. Sorry, which is the polar opposite of that. So that's when you're jacked. So you are the biggest like a guy can or a woman can physically get. But again, there's good separation, good detailing, but the emphasis is, if you put men's physique bodybuilder next to an open bodybuilder, there is a big size difference.
Oh, okay. And
you're talking like, if you go down the enhanced route, at Mr. Olympia stage, the open bodybuilders, some of them can be like 140 kilo on stage, but 5'8". In men's physique, again at like the enhanced stage, some of the men's physique guys could be like maybe 90, like a 90 kilo on stage could be like a Mr. Olympia. So you're talking 50 kilo difference at like the same height.
That's like 1.5 times the size, effectively.
But then what you've got to remember as well is like, you go down the enhanced route, that's a 140 kilo guy who might be like 2% body fat, maybe less than that on stage.
Yeah.
And then you go into your third category, which is my one, that's classic physique. You get them 2 bodybuilders, you meet them in the middle. So you've got a guy who is he's got a good amount of muscle size in him, shredded. I think my key word for classic physique is, my key words would be aesthetic. So you've got to look good. There's got to be good symmetry, a good V taper, but then it's old school. So, you look at like the enhanced route, bodybuilders now, they are very big, very blocky. A lot of the physiques, when you compare them to like the 70s and the 80s, mainly the 70s, is quite ugly. The 70s, your Arnie era, Danny Padilla, Frank Zanes, they look good. Like, you look at the body and it's like the kind of body you're like, I'd want to have that. Whereas you look at, say, like a big Rami who competes today, and you're like, I wouldn't want to look like that. It doesn't look healthy. So that's where, like, you meet in the middle. That's a healthy look. I think that's the same with, in natural bodybuilding. You've always had the open bodybuilding, and then recently they've branched out into men's physique and classic. In enhanced, I think it was only in 2016 that they created classic physique.
Oh wow. Okay.
And that's where you've had, like, sort of in your second year, a guy called Chris Bumstead comes in, who is the definition
just a guy.
Well, yeah, he is the definition of a classic physique, but taking it to, like, I genuinely believe that, we run classic physique for another 20, 30 years at enhanced level. You will never get a guy that will look as good as he, like, can push the boundaries of being as big as he can be, but still keeping the aesthetics.
Yeah.
And then, like, on the natural side, it's that, it's funny because I had my my like induction yesterday, or like your athlete intro ahead of next Sunday,
right?
And I'm seeing like more the Italian team who are competing against me, and some of their guys are like known for, like, say, like number 2 or number 1 in the world for open bodybuilding, and he's got a real, like, hardcore. And when I say hardcore, he looks massive in a photo. I stand next to him and he's 5'4".
Oh, so it's just like a complete...
Yeah, it's that. And again, like, that's where, like, when you look at them, like, the natural guys, you're like, Jesus, this guy looks massive, and you stand next to him, and you're like, for me, like, I'm a very big guy in natural bodybuilding on the stage, because, like, a lot of the guys are, like, the hardcore bodybuilders, they're like 5'4", 5'5", or they're, like, say 6'1", 6'2", super shredded, but they weigh the same as me, but when you got like 3, 4, 5 inches on me, obviously you don't look as big.
Right, yeah.
So it's that, and it's weird, like, sort of that 5'8", 5'9" is like a real ideal height for this specific sport. And even in the enhanced side, you look at all of the Mr. Olympias in open bodybuilding, like Ronnie Coleman's a great example. On stage was 134 kilo. He got up to 0.5% body fat. So again, this is less than 1%. And if you stood next to me, we'd be the same height.
Yeah.
So like, you look at these
Looks
guys,
like a giant.
you think they're giants in photos or videos. When you put them next to, like, the average person, they look massive, but not height-wise.
Yeah.
We're actually, like, bodybuilders are quite small people.
I guess, do you know what? Part of that might be the photography, because I feel like the photos are always looking up at the stage. So it looks like this giant person towering over you.
Yeah.
And actually, you get in a room with them and you stood next to them in the same height.
Yeah.
So kind of want to get into, how you train and the sort of things you do. So with the different physiques attached to what the judges want, how do you train for those specific things?
So funnily enough, I train and, like, trained with, or I speak with a lot of other bodybuilders, and my training style is very different to them.
Okay.
So, like, traditional bodybuilding training, you might go for, like, say 10 to 15 reps, and it's you're good at pump in a session, but you are more like pure hypertrophy training. So you want to try and get that, that muscle after a few months of training to look big and get some nice detail. Now, I go more into, I have a real emphasis on the strength side, similar to Dorian Yates, because, if you put the strength element in with the hypertrophy, you get, so there's a word called dense, and you get a dense look. And what I mean by that is, you get, and you might sit with some bodybuilders where you'll see them and, like, we'll use the deltoids or the shoulder muscle as a great example. Hypertrophy training, and it makes that shoulder, that delt look really big, like a balloon. But the issue is with that balloon, you stick a pen in it and you look like, you see a lot of bodybuilders, if I put a pin into your shoulder, it looks like it will pop. Whereas if you've got a dense shoulder, it's big, but it looks solid. So you're like, if I go and stick a pin into that, my pin's going to break.
Okay.
And that is the look I go for. So I go for a look where, you've got a real, like, you've got symmetry, you've got great detail, everything is in proportions, but you look like someone that could lift big.
Right.
And in order to look like someone that could lift big, you got to lift big. And I don't mean like compared to other people, but I mean, you've got to push yourself
Yeah.
to like if it's my 6 to 8 rep max, like physically, what is my 6 to 8 rep max?
Okay.
Pushing yourself to your limits. And again, I think that links into then, like when I stand on stage, like, you know, sometimes I've been on a stage, I've looked the best, like from a bodybuilding point of view, and sometimes I haven't, but I've always looked like I can lift the most. I've always been like the densest look on the stage. And then I think from that, it's, you know, you've got the genetic side of it as well, where like, you know, I can think of one guy in particular, don't compete with him. He's a pro in a different organization, but he's like the polar opposite physique to me. Okay. We did some like posing practice a couple of weeks back, and he's what I call like a power physique.
Okay.
So he's like quite like squatty, like the muscles are big, but he's not got the aesthetics. So like he explodes into every movement when he performs his posing, but it's very like a very hardcore look. Whereas again, for me as like a classic physique guy, it's more of like a dance. Like you move in and everything looks good because you're opening up the muscle, you're showing off the detail. And I guess that's why he competes in open and I compete in classic, because it's that, you know, we've all got very different physiques, whether you train in the gym, whether you don't. Your genetics will not hinder you, but it will sort of cap you off to having a different physique.
Right.
And it's having the categories so that, you know, so like you look at me and you, Angus, you're 6'4"?
6'4", 6'5"-ish.
6'4", 6'4.5".
Yeah.
And there's me that's 5'8". So like, if we're both, you know, let's say we both got 70 kilo of muscle on us, and we're both at like 6% body fat, we're going to have two completely different physiques,
very different physiques
because of our genetics.
Yeah.
And it's having categories. So it's like, you know, for you probably be more of like a men's physique guy, because again, like you've got a good, like you know, you'd have a great, like you'd have a good shredded body, have great detailing there, but there wouldn't as much be, say, like the muscle, like the size of the muscle on the bone.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got a 5'4" guy, and again he's got like them same, he's the flip. He'd be open bodybuilding, because actually you could pack a load of muscle into a shorter frame, and you look explosive. You know, you look very like hardcore with that.
Training wise, then.
Yeah.
Push pull legs, nice and simple. Go 3 times a week. What is it? What's the how do you train?
So, and again, like over the last 3 years I've been doing this, I think every year has been either a little bit different or very different. So me this year compared to my first year of prep, so we go back 2 years ago now, very, very different training programs. So this year my big emphasis was don't physically burn out, but also, you know, I went away and I was looking at like the literature, and I'm thinking, right, so in order to like create muscle synthesis in the body or in the muscle for as long as possible, so you're sending that signal to the muscle of grow across the whole week, really you've got to be training that muscle minimum 2 times a week. So I do that, but then what I've done is so initially I started off the year where I would go and I would do 5 full body days a week, but what I do is I would only train 3 sets per muscle group a day, but I would put it out. So let's say on day 1 I'd go and I'd do a compound for my chest, or I might go and do like a bench press, and that would be like a 6 to 8 rep if I'm looking to pack on the muscle, if I'm in a calorie surplus. But then on my day 2, where I've done like a compound on my chest on day 1, 3 sets of bench, day 2 would be more of like an isolation exercise. So that's where it's a lower intensity and I'm just focusing on the chest muscle itself, as opposed to like if you're doing bench press, you're looking at the chest mainly, but you're bringing in a bit of shoulder and a bit of arms. So then on day 2, I might do a pec fly. So again, isolating out the chest muscle. It's not going to be as much wear and tear on that muscle fiber. But the weird thing I found with that is a combination of doing like smaller muscle tears on the muscle, but over like higher frequency throughout the week. And you combine that with making sure you're actually hitting your protein goal. And I'm not saying like 100 grams of protein, like genuinely working out, and the way you do it, like your weight in pounds is the amount of grams of protein you really want to hit. So for me in the off season, I'm looking at like 180 grams of protein a day. You hit that and you combine, you know, like them two to make that equation, and I'd go in every week for progressive overload, and you're hitting PBs every week, because over that 24 hour, you know, you're giving that body 24 hours of that muscle to repair. But then obviously, you know, once that muscle repairs, that's when you get the growth. So it's low enough intensity that you're giving the body, like, it's a smaller tear so it can actually repair quicker, but then you're also getting that growth quicker. Now, I did that, and I'll be honest with you, like, for 5-6 months that felt amazing and it was great. But then the issue is, and what I find is, I will do, you know, like, you're training 5 gym days a week. That's fairly intense for anybody, and I wouldn't recommend it unless you are competing in a sport and more bodybuilding. Like, if you're a rugby player, I'm not going to tell you to do that. If you're a bodybuilder, or you've not got much else on in your life, I'd be like, yeah, go and do that. But I got burnout about 8 weeks in, and I don't know, like, for those that are listening, if you've ever had burnout, but it's such a weird thing, because I remember, like, for me, I felt like I needed, like, my body was telling me I need a week off, and I went into the gym and I was like, I'll do one more session, and it was like I was trying to pick up weights or, like, do reps that the week before I was doing easy, and I just couldn't physically do it. So then that's when the key thing here is listen to your body. So for me, it's like every 7 to 8 weeks, my body will tell me, and I know it sounds weird, but, like, when your body's telling you, you know your body's telling you.
Is it more of a physical or is it a mental thing? So you're in the gym and you're kind of checked out, or you physically just can't do it, or is it like you're thinking, so I can't really? There's the
physical, you feel banged up, and there's the mental. I don't want to go to the gym today.
Yeah.
Like, mentally, you don't want to go, and it's weird because, like, every session I can't wait to do it. So what I do is I just take a week off. Now, my version of a week off, or, you know, some people might call it a deload week, is for a week I will not touch a weight. I won't pick up a dumbbell.
Oh, wow.
Some people might do, you know, I'll go down to, say, like a 20 rep max, or I'll train at 60% of, you know, perceived exertion. So for me, I won't pick up weight. But I tell you what, every time I've ever done that, I will go in there on my first session back a week later. The first thing I notice is, bloody hell, I'm stronger than I was before. Like, and it, you know, it's the key principle of, with that kind of training where you're doing 5 full body days a week, you're almost like building up, I call it building up data into the muscle, where it's like, right, we know that, you know, when we do get an opportunity to fully recover and fully grow, we're going to be able to do this, that, and the other. And it's like builds up, builds up, builds up. And again, you do see success while you're training, but you only really see the full success once on that, like, week 8, taking the week off, and then when you go back into the gym a week later and you're fully recovered, you've fully got the progress that you should have. That's when you're like, okay, like, this is it. And the weird thing as well is your physique. So, like, I tend to tie in my week off with a holiday, and actually, the further into the holiday I'm getting, the better I'm looking, you know. And it's such a weird thing, but it's that trust in your process. So for me, as being my own coach, I've gone out and I've, you know, researched all of this data around so many different principles of training or diet. So I know that this is what the literature tells me. So if all the literature tells me A, and all of a sudden I start half chance, oh, what if B is actually the answer? Well, then I'm not sticking to my process that I've gone out and I've spent months planning. So it's that even when you start to doubt yourself, oh, maybe B's the answer here. Nope, stick to A, because every time I've done it, like, in the long term, it's always been the right thing to do.
Okay.
Whereas, like, then to fully answer your question, at the moment, I'm just, you know, where I'm in a cut phase, I'm not going to be able to do 5 days a week and still push, like, progressive overload. Or for me, it's not about putting on muscle, it's maintaining muscle. So at the moment, I am down to 4 gym days a week. Is it 4? Yeah, 4 gym days a week. And I go, let me get this right. So I will do 3 body parts a day. So day 1 is, so day 1 would be chest. That's right. I've been doing it for I don't know how many months now, and I can't think of it. It'd be like 3 upper body muscles. Day 2 would be 3 lower body muscles, and then I do like a legs day, and then something. Oh no, I might. But yeah, it works out. I think at the minute it's more just training every body part. No, yeah, it is twice a week. Yeah, twice a week on upper body. Sorry, and then 1 day a week on. No, I'm completely wrong. My bad. Sorry. At the moment, 4 training days a week.
Right.
I do 1 upper body day, 1 lower body day, 1 upper body day, 1 lower body day.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
And but again, it's that, you know, when I do, say, if on day 1 of upper body, I might do my shoulder compound.
Right.
I'm not going to do. Sorry, I do my chest compound. I'm not going to do my shoulder compound on that day, because then it will be on my day 3, which is my second upper body day. That's when I do my shoulder compounds. That's when I'm looking at blasting out my shoulders. And actually, chest day is more of isolating that muscle and trying to get a little bit more hypertrophy training in there.
Okay.
And the same with, like, your 2 leg days. I'll have a quad dominant day and a hamstring dominant day. Because for anyone that's ever like tried to max out squats in like say a squat and a deadlift on the same day, you probably normally start with your squat first. By the time you get to your deadlift, like, you know, realistically, you're not going to hit your, say you're going for an 8 rep max. If I've just done my 8 rep max for 3 sets on squat, I'm not actually going to hit my 8 rep max for deadlift. And you're going to burn out your CNS, your central nervous system. So, and this is burnout is burning out your central nervous system over time, so that the mental and the physical is fried to the point the mental and both the physical need some time off. And at the minute, the one thing I've brought in as well is a lot more cardio. So I will do cardio every day.
Okay.
Which is like the antibody building. But actually for me, there's firstly want to be like a physically fit human. And also for me, when I'm cutting, if I go out and do some cardio, it allows me to hit my, say, weight loss goal. Or not my weight loss goal, my fat loss goal for that week. Because that's the other key thing. And this is taking it away from bodybuilding now and looking into like general life. You know, how many people have you had that have said to you, my goal is to lose weight?
Yeah, of course.
Never anyone's goal. Your goal is to drop body fat.
Yeah.
And it's that.
Everyone's looking for the one weird old tip to be shredded and not go through it. And I think one of the biggest things, obviously, is, being active, keeping to a routine is the big difference a lot of the time in people's lives. But away from training, it's the nutrition.
Yeah. And
nutrition is a huge bit of it. How does your nutrition change in like prep and supplements and stuff like that? What do you...
So I guess, well, firstly, we'll go over the supplements. So I don't take anything.
Not protein, not creatine?
Well, here's, like, for me, and again, it goes back to me looking into the literature, protein is best absorbed in the body through meat.
Yeah.
You know, we are trained to, like, over thousands of years, our protein sources have always been through meat. So for me, you know, I will have half a kilo of chicken breast every day. That's 155 grams of protein. Now, my goal is 180. So then by the time I get all my carbs and that as well, I'm actually going to get a small amount of protein, but enough to tip me over the 180. I might occasionally do like a pre-workout, but then caffeine, you know, you go up in the morning, you have a cup of coffee. Well, that's a supplement, but on the flip side of that, I'm not doing it for sports performance. I'm doing it because I need it, like, mentally.
So I can do my job.
Yeah, pretty much. But I might, you know, if I'm training early in the day, so it could be like a weekend. Sorry about that. If it's on the weekend, I might have a pre-workout as like a treat, because I might, you know, if I'm going to go for like a heavy lift or whatever, gets you that little bit of buzz to like push you through. But yeah, apart from that, like that might be, say, twice a month I'll have a pre-workout. Protein powder, I have it at home. I will avoid taking it.
Really?
And then, I mean, like your creatine, I don't take. And that's more for like, particularly when I'm cutting, I would say to people, like, and you know, I've done it in the past where there's a guy where I told him, like, you should be taking creatine when you're cutting, and he got his pro card in his next comp. And then when I spoke to him about it, he was like, that's actually a really useful tip. Thank you for that, because he kept his strength. And I guess that, you know, in some kind of way, he thought it helped him to keep that little bit of muscle mass that when he went onto the stage and, you know, he won it by a fine margin. But it's all the small things at the elite level that build up to make a big impact. But for me, like particularly when I'm cutting weight, because with creatine, you put in a little bit of water weight. Yeah. You know, I don't know numbers wise if I've actually lost the body fat I need to lose.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, that, and there's 70% of the population creatine works for, 30% it doesn't. I'm pretty sure I'm in the 30%.
Oh wow.
Because I've taken creatine in the past and I haven't really seen any results that, you know, more when I'm bulking, that just the normal bulk without creatine, I get fairly similar results.
Okay.
Amino acids, I wouldn't suggest taking, because if you're getting meat into your, you know, into your daily diet, you're getting amino acids. I'm just thinking, I think that's it. So sort of key thing there is I don't take supplements personally. A lot of bodybuilders I train with, or I know, they will take a whole list of supplements. I think the only thing I would suggest is multivits, like vitamins, and then particularly when you're cutting, like your testosterone is going to drop massively if you're doing it over a long enough time, so like zinc and magnesium. But again, that's to get like a small notice, which for the average person you wouldn't notice. But for me, if I've been like cutting for 9 months, it's that little like micro thing where it's like a 5%, but I will pick up on the 5%. You feel a little bit better in yourself.
Yeah.
And then with the diet, I will try and stay consistent throughout the year. Because again, like everybody's body is different. And when you eat different foods or you drink, different drinks, your body reacts differently. The key, a class example is like milk. Some of us can drink milk. Some of us can't drink milk, and it's just the way our body's designed. So for me, my main carbs are rice and oats.
Mm-hmm.
And year round, whether I'm in bulk, I'm in a cart or in between, my main carb's going to be rice and oats. Have a little bit of veg. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but again, depending on what point in the year it is, I might be taking a multivit. If I'm taking a multivit, then do I need veg?
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend taking veg, but for me personally, it's that, it's one less thing I've got to stick into my fitness pal.
In terms of obviously calories and stuff, I think whenever I've obviously not competed or anything like that, but when I've tried to cut down for summer and look slightly better, I've just used veg because it's so low calorie to bulk out a meal. Kind of calorie wise, what are you hitting, and are you using anything to kind of make sure you feel full?
Yeah, so I guess if we go with that, so when I'm cutting, it's normally anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day. And the reason why I say, because that 500 calories can be a big difference, I'm a very high active person.
Well, so you said you're doing cardio every day as well at the minute, so you do need to fuel that as well as your existence.
Exactly. So you go back to this Thursday, Friday just gone, I burnt 4,000 calories on 2 separate days.
Mm-hmm.
So actually on them days, if I burnt 4,000 calories, well, I'm going to eat 3,000 calories.
Mm-hmm.
But I still 1,000 calorie different. I'm still working towards my goal. But then it's that, and that links into the second half of your question there about, what do you do to feel full? For me, it's not as much feeling full as it is mentally full. And what I mean by that is giving my body stuff it wants.
Mm-hmm.
So when I cut, and I don't know why, if I am well fed or I'm in a bulk, put a bit of gingerbread on the table, doesn't bother me. But every time I cut, and I get a couple of months into a cut, I see a bit of gingerbread, and
That's so specific.
I did a leg day before I did my last, or my depletion leg day before I came here.
Yeah.
I went to Nuffield Leatherhead, and I've got to walk past Waitrose to get to the cart, and there's a certain kind of gingerbread they do in there with this icing, and I've gone in there to have it, and it's that. But for me now, for the rest of the day, I'm, I could not eat the rest of the day.
It's ticked a box.
But it's that issue, your sugar craving, and everyone's different, whether it's chocolate, gingerbread, or something else. And I think a lot of people, and it's weird, it's more the people that aren't bodybuilders, your everyday person, they think if I've got to lose weight, I've got to be miserable and not enjoy it. So this is where, for me, and again, going out and doing my own research, I am very much in the way where when I'm cutting, I will give myself every day a little, I'll have a 200-300 calorie buffer, where I store that away, and at the end of the day, that 200-300 calories, I get to have something I really like. Mm-hmm. I'm not, and you get some guys where they're like, oh, I cut for 12 weeks and I'm not going to touch anything nice. Firstly, that's boring.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, if I did that, I know I'm going to go insane after a week or 2 weeks. So it doesn't work for me, doesn't fit into me as a person and knowing my own body, both mentally and physically. Mm-hmm. I think that's the key thing, is because you get a lot, and I think that's what puts off the average person, is they do a week, 2 weeks of taking out the stuff they love eating, and then that's why no one actually hits their fat loss goal.
Right,
because you're like, do you know what? I'd actually rather eat the foods that I like eating and not cut the body fat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into that nasty habit of reverse dieting. So you get 2 weeks of really good progress and you pack it all back on.
Yeah.
Where it's actually have a healthy, active lifestyle where you're doing something physical every day, something you enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it. Making sure you're eating the foods you enjoy every day, but doing it in moderation. It's for me, I enjoy a little bit of chocolate. So I'll have a chocolate bar in the fridge and I'll break off 4 squares and I'll have that at the end of my day. And that's if I've ticked all my boxes, well done. You have your 4 squares, and you know what? It fits into my diet plan or calorie plan for that day.
Okay. I think that's really important, because anytime when I was younger and I was sort of discovering fitness, trying to lose a bit of weight, you see a lot online and you just think, I'm just going to go hardcore, because why would you not? And you're right, it sucks. And then you get to kind of a point where you feel comfortable, and so for some people they'll say, I'm going on a 2-week diet, and so they get to the end of the 2 weeks, and you're right, they refeed, they go and have the things they were craving while they're gone. For me, it was always, I'm going to keep doing this until I feel like I look right.
Yeah.
And so I get to this point of looking right, and I'm like, nice. And then I just sort of gradually slip off it, and then I start thinking, well, why did I stop? Why did I not just make a permanent change? And then that's kind of what I've focused more, is becoming a bit more of an adult and being a bit more responsible, is making a change that is, I can keep permanent.
So it's interesting you say that. So the last 3 months of my cut, and my thing was, right, once I've stopped, cutting, what do I want my life to be like post this competition, post November if I get there? And I sat down and I wrote down these key things. And I was like, okay, for the next 3 months, I'm going to do that now. So my last 3 months of training, I'm doing the cardio every day because that's something I want to do post, getting ready for a bodybuilding competition. I'm eating a higher amount of calories than what I have done for, say, like the previous 6 months before that, because I want to be doing that. But the activity level's still high. I'm eating the foods, and really for me, it's adjusting my body now so that when I stop competing, there's not the shock. And what I mean by that is, and it goes back to yo-yo dieting, every bodybuilder I've ever spoken to, particularly after your first competition, it is you get an eating disorder, and I had it. My first, and I ate clean for 6, maybe 7 months, where I, all the foods I love, and I took them out, and it like sends you insane. And then all of a sudden, you go from that, you stop competing, you go into your off season, so you can put on weight, and someone puts food on the table, you don't have to say no anymore. So instead of saying no, it's not having, say, one cake, you have the whole pack until nothing's there. And we all like it for that first comp. And then what you do is do enough comp where you either stop competing or you do enough comps where you train your body. And for me, I think the key thing to stop me from going into that in a couple of months' time is by acclimatizing now. And, you look at it really in any sport, you look, a key part of performance or a key part of success, whether it's on the pitch or off it, is acclimatizing to your environment. Mm-hmm. And it's thinking about the environment I'm in now, the environment I want to be in a couple of months, and making sure that I'm comfortable to move into that.
Right.
Because as much as I want to be successful in this competition, I also want to be successful in life post-competition. And what that looks like for me is maintaining my physical health. And if I maintain my physical health, I'm a big believer that will help me maintain my mental health as well.
With that, do you ever find it sometimes works the reverse? In terms of if you have a physical slip, an injury, or training's just not going quite right, do you find it negatively affects you mentally?
So the weird thing is I've never broken a bone. I've never torn a muscle.
Don't say that, because the last time I said that, I did it the same day. So I'm literally gonna touch wood for you.
Thank you.
That scares me.
I've never had like a serious injury, but I think it goes into like my training style. My training style emphasizes recovery. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going in there and doing some massive chest session, or there's certain exercises I won't do because actually there's a high risk of injury there. Okay. But I think where that does come in is more when you're doing the weight gain. And it is the maddest thing, because and I get it every time where I put on a little bit of weight and I'm panicking. And I say I've put on a kilo, and then I'm like, oh my God, like I'm fat. And I'm stood there with a 6-pack, you're still like below 10% body fat, but in your head, you're the one thing you don't want to be, because you've spent, and that's things like, a lot of us bodybuilders, we tend to spend more time cutting than we do bulking. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to go into that phase. Or I'll be like, when I'm at the peak of my bulk, so I'm at 85 kilo, and I'm in the gym, and I'm like, I look fat. But then I'm actually like, and it's that, for me, it's having what I call honest conversations with myself. Okay. So and not in an arrogant way, but you look around the gym and you're like, well, I'm still in the best shape in it. And it's not like looking down at people, it's actually being honest, where I'm 85 kilo, I'm actually still at like a low body fat percentage for, the average person. So I might be like 15%. I'm healthy. I'm the strongest I'm the strongest version of me. I'm happier because I'm getting to go out and do these social activities that you don't for 6 to 7 months of the year. And the abs aren't there, or they're not as on show, but then it's remembering actually when I've got that 6-pack and you're shredded, I'm super miserable.
Yeah.
And you are, and there's lots of other things, whether it's like chemical imbalances that come into play, or you're constantly tired, and loads of things where like it affects certain parts of your life. So like when you have a partner, I'm very lucky with my partner, she's super supportive, but it's at the same time seeing that where I've got strains on myself, there's also at times there's like strains on her, because I think in any sport, when you're trying to compete or you're competing at the highest level, there is that selfish element. And I am self-aware enough that I don't want to do things like selfish things that would take away from people that I love.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good thing. And I think one of the big signs of maturity in being an athlete, but also as someone that's probably coached quite a few athletes, is that you do take a step back. And I think a lot of people do get so caught up in physical appearance and physical performance, they don't take a step back. And it's you said it sounds very. I think it doesn't sound modest to say, I'm looking around the gym and I'm still in the best shape here, but it's factual, and I think that a lot of the time, particularly in moments where I've had low confidence or I've been overcritical of myself, I have started to learn to be mature and actually giving yourself a bit of credit. You have to do sometimes, and you have to appreciate where you are, how you've got there, and how far you've come, to be giving yourself the same criticism you were back in the older days where you weren't in that shape. And I generally feel like people are very, very hard on themselves in fitness, and being able to take a step back and saying, do you know what, actually, you're not in awful shape.
Yeah.
You're fine. You're actually a lot happier than you were. Like you said, you're a lot happier when you're not absolutely shredded to hell, is a very, very positive approach and way of dealing with things.
Yeah.
But I'm interested as well, if this is going to be a bit of one of those like interview questions.
Right.
If you woke up tomorrow morning and you were like, you went downstairs and you said, I'm just going to pop out to the gym. And I was like, to the where? To the gym. Who's gym? Gym doesn't exist.
Right.
No one's invented the equipment. You don't have the means of making the equipment. What do you do? Is that a closed chapter? Is that then done? I'll go do something else? Or is it like, oh my God, I need to get my fix of something?
Yeah, like I think I need, for me, it's that, the gym for me is a mental clearance. So regardless of what I'm training for, first and foremost, I will have like a mental build up in the week or in the day. So for me, going to the gym and being able to have, firstly, time in my own head where I can reflect on the day, or think about either what I've got coming up or what's happened in the past, and just clearing out everything, having these thoughts that when I come out of the gym, physically feel better, mentally feel better, but also my life game plan is a bit more in check. So if that's not the gym, I would still keep up cardio, because I quite enjoy running, or I quite enjoy going on a step machine. But if there's no gym, there's probably no step machine. So it'd be out running, and like for me and you, we're very fortunate that we live in like a place of great natural beauty. So actually over lockdown, being able to like run through these like amazing like places of amazing scenery, that's another benefit. I would probably go into like mixed martial arts, something like that. I still enjoy like, in a weird way, I enjoy the Nawaz, and Nawaz is like fighting on the floor. But it's that feeling of like when you just got you and you've got like another person who is, almost like you're equal, and you're just going at it. Like you're trying to get each other into submissions, or trying to beat the other person in whatever way, and I quite enjoy that. But again, it goes back to that, like, I come from like my last name's Warr, I think you're naturally going to have like certain characteristics, and then you look at my family and they all have them. We are a competitive household, so it's interesting. Like I had some lunch with my parents the other day and my partner, and my dad's like, what's your next fix going to be when you're done with bodybuilding? And he's certain I'm going to go into something else. And I'm like, actually, you know what? I think I'm quite happy that when I close this chapter, that's the competitive side of me done in sport.
Okay.
And I want to prioritize like my family and my partner, and I want to prioritize my work again, because I've done that in the past, and like, I think the sports side I'm happy with, but then being able to prioritize them too, because they fit into your long-term plan. If when you have a family, firstly, being with an amazing partner where you feel like you can, you want to start a family together, and I've got that in my partner. And then I think progressing enough in work that when you do have that family, you're in a safe enough environment where you've got good career progressions, and financially you're able to put your future kids into a stable environment where they can then go off and they can do all these sports because the parents can afford to put them into different sports, or travel the UK to compete, because it's something my family weren't well off, but the one thing my parents always did was they always made sure that there was money in the car, there was fuel in the car, so that it could take us to fight in Sheffield, or take us to play against, have a big rugby match in wherever it was. That's one thing that I'm very thankful to my parents for, and I'd want to give to my kids.
I want to link back to when you were younger and you were a kid, and slowly bring this round because there's only a few more questions I've got for you, and there's going to be some interesting ones. Do you still have? You mentioned that you had dyspraxia when you were diagnosed with dyspraxia. Does that still affect you today?
Not as much. I think up until recently, the way it was most noticeable was in my speech.
Okay.
Because like a telltale sign, it's like you slur your words a lot, and that was something. Well, particularly as a coach as well, I was really aware that I'm talking. Try not to talk a lot as a coach, but you're slurring your words.
Okay.
And I think it's only sort of, now I think about it, it's only like the last year where I've become like hyper aware of that, and that's like the last thing, and it's being a lot more thoughtful before I speak, so that when I do speak, it's clear, it's concise, they understand, but also there's that like tap on the wrist from yourself when you like mumble up a load of words. I think it was weird, like I go back to college, but I think one of the reasons why I hated a lot of the guys that I trained and played with was because my handling skills weren't the best, and they used to take the piss out of me a lot for that. And it's that the reason why my handling skills weren't the best is because from the ball going there to my hands, it's actually like a massive challenge in being able to mentally process that ball coming to me, and being able to process my hands being in the right position to catch the ball. Like for pretty much my whole sporting career in rugby, that was a real challenge for me. Whereas for like a lot of the guys that I played with, that was second nature. Yeah. So, well,
we all said that in when I played American football. It was very obvious when someone turned up and was like, "Oh, I want to play receiver." Like you've got to be good at catching. And it's one of those things where someone will turn up and be like, "Oh, can you coach me to be a receiver?" And it's one of those where it's like, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
But there is a certain level of natural ability that some people have and some people don't. And yes, you can practice. But the people that have got the natural ability to catch and have got good hand-eye coordination, unfortunately, will usually always have that.
I think this is the beauty of sport, is there's different kinds of athletes. So you've got the athlete who doesn't matter what ball sport they do, they're going to be good at it, and that's my brother Charlie. Whereas you've got me, or actually I've not got the technical skills for a ball sport, but actually what I'm designed for is something that's either strength-based or something that is physicality-based. And like I'm not the biggest of guys, but you put me up against someone who is of an equal size to me or of an equal weight, and actually I'm a lot stronger than a lot of people. Like when I was doing judo, I was always naturally a lot stronger than the other guys that were my weight. And it's that having different kinds of athletes for different sports. So again, like if you're you look at swimmers, they're not good at swimming because they practice swimming. Actually, for a lot of them, the reason why they've gone into swimming is because they're built to excel in the demands of that sport. So it's that really as a person, right? Looking at my physical makeup, my genetic makeup, what sports are built for me to be good in, as opposed to just picking a sport and it's actually probably not that good at this sport.
In the case of your sports, and you've gone through, there's obviously quite a lot of contact based. The other question that I was going to ask, from your childhood and what you mentioned, do you find that you're still very testosterone fueled and there's a lot of aggression in everything you do?
Polar opposite at the moment.
Really?
That's with the karting. So
of course.
I've had like my blood work done a couple of months ago, and I've got like very low testosterone levels for the average male my age. And it's weird because like at work, I'm at this point at the minute where everyone's a little bit terrified of me. Not because I'm like this testosterone fueled guy, but quite the opposite, where like I've not got the patience, and it's the little things I pick up all of a sudden. It's not a burst of anger as much as a burst of frustration where you're like, just leave me alone. And it comes across in one way when actually it's meant in a very different way. Like I am constantly tired. You just like, you want to be sat on your own, like went out for dinner last night, like a couples thing, and I didn't really speak a lot. It's not because I'm not interested in them, interested in the conversation. It's just I don't physically have the energy to, particularly after like a long day where I've done 2 hours of gym work. I've then gone and coached a rugby match, and then from there I've having got up early in the day to there, and I'm like, I just don't have the physical or mental energy to be a big part of this.
You don't have the battery, let alone the social battery for it.
And then people can, he's moody, or he's like quite an angry guy, and it's like, I'm genuinely not. And that's where like, and all my work colleagues notice it then when I'm in a bulk, or I've given myself enough time where I've been in a surplus and actually my testosterone levels go up. It's not I become angrier. I'm actually like a lot nicer guy because I'm able to tolerate the little things a lot more. I'm naturally a lot happier.
Right.
And it's that you're seeing like the mental mood swings that aren't there anymore, and you actually sort of tend to spend a lot more time in the same mood, which tends to be a more positive mood.
Yeah. With that, I think I know the answer based on your future aspirations and putting competitive side behind it. The scale of 0 to 10, 10 being, it's going to happen.
Right.
What's the odds that you jump on some performance-enhancing substances?
No. Again, I've thought about this for a lot, and I was thinking about potentially doing, so it'd be TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy. But my whole life, my whole thing has been, wanting to be the best that I can naturally. And I think it's that thing of, probably realizing that even if I spent the next year bulking, are my testosterone levels going to go back to sky high? No. But on the flip side of that, do I want them to be? So like, there's a lot of guys that I've trained with or I know from the gym, and the minute they get onto like TRT, or the minute they start pumping other stuff into their body, and it's you've completely flipped the 180 in what I'm like. So at the minute, I am super grouchy and super tired, and I snap real quick on the little things that people do because I'm tired. Whereas they're at the opposite end, where like it's the little thing that someone does and they're just angry towards that person.
Right.
And like, a lot of guys I've spoken to have done stuff and they really struggle with it. And the key thing they all say, or majority of them say, is don't do anything. And if a majority of the room tell you not to do something, there's probably a very good reason for that. And the few who do tell you to get on gear, I look at them. Firstly, they don't compete, which is weird. Like, everybody I've ever spoken to that competes and takes stuff tells you not to take stuff. Do it naturally. And the ones that don't compete and do tell you to take gear, I look at them and I'm like, I wouldn't want your physique. And I probably wouldn't want your life as well. Like, I'm very happy at the lifestyle and, the people I'm around. And yeah, I might not have a high testosterone level, or might have quite a low one at the minute, but as long as that goes a little bit higher and I'm towards what a normal person needs to be, or a normal male needs to be, then, I don't need to potentially in the future put myself or those around me into detriment just to get that fix.
I think that's a message that I really wanted to make clear, because I thought you'd be of that opinion. I think one of the concerns I've got is with TikTok and new social media, there's a lot of guys that are on stuff that have made it seem like it's the best thing in the world, and I'm hearing more and more 16, 17-year-olds that have gone to the gym for a month, not seen any progress, and then all of a sudden they're jumping on gear at that age, and it's so dangerous. And it's nice to have the message from someone that's doing very well in bodybuilding, and who's, first of all, not using gear of any kind, but also supplements, not over spending money on supplements that aren't really doing a lot.
It's, there's a reason why there is so much money into supplements, but also, at the same time, so little good information. And there's part of that are the TikTokers, and you get TikTokers that admit they're on gear. A lot of the TikTokers or people of social media take gear and they will tell you they're natural.
Of course.
Firstly, for that, if it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, probably a duck. So if you're looking at people that are, like IFBB level competitors, and you're looking at this influencer and they've actually got a fairly similar physique, well, I'll tell you for a fact now, no one has ever been on IFBB stage natural. There's a reason for that, because your body just naturally cannot get to the demands that you need to be on that stage. And on the other side of it, I would even go as far as to say, a lot of PTs, they will give misinformation just to sell their products. So whether that is to sell my time as a PT, whether that is to sell my supplement or the supplement company that sponsor me. And this is why I go back to, you look into the literature. There is only one supplement that you can buy that's not illegal in this country that is scientifically proven to work, and that's creatine.
Yeah.
So if anyone's going to take a supplement post listening to this, the only thing I'd recommend is creatine. But again, with that, watch your goals, and also bearing in mind that there's about a 30% buffer of people that it might not work for. So if you're not seeing results from that, then come off of it, but also get your blood work done. And particularly it's interesting because I've had friends that have been diagnosed with depression or have had real mental health struggles, and the weird case is for them guys, and again this is my male friends, they've gone and got the blood work done, found that they had low testosterone, they've been medically prescribed onto a TRT, and it's actually worked for them.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's that, if you do go onto something like that, not taking it because you want to, but actually, and again, I had one friend who took it because he was trying to have a kid, had a kid as a result.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's that if you do take something, it's medically prescribed, you've sat down with a medical professional or a doctor, they've done your blood work, and they're actually prescribing you something to make your health better.
Yeah.
If you're doing it to look good, just don't.
Have you got any other advice for someone who has looked at bodybuilding and gone, it's interesting, not sure if I want to give it a go?
On that, if you really, really want to do it because you're going to go through hell. But when you're on stage, there is nothing in your life that will ever come close to that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I never forget my first time going out there, and my first big pose I hit was my rear double bicep. You know, I've got a good back when you're comparing it to other natural bodybuilders, and you hear that crowd, like the reaction to that back, and you're like, wow. But if it's one of the things you're going to know and I might try it, don't, because you'll only ever hate it. The other key thing I'd say for that as well, if you do compete, naturally this is, don't water cut, because I had it my first competition. I did a water cut, dropped 5 kilo in 48 hours, woke up the day before my comp and lost vision in my left eye. And that actually happened this Thursday.
Wow.
So I effectively accidentally water cut, like purely dehydrated by mistake. I just didn't put enough sodium or didn't drink enough water that day. I woke up on the Thursday and I went into work and like my eyes were like, it was like a little bit of pain. But as I'm looking around, I'm like, something doesn't look right here. And it's like, I can see you, but everything behind you was a blur. Or I'm looking at a piece of paper and it's blurry.
Okay.
And it was like really like in my left eye, and in my right eye was blurry, but not as much in my left. And I'm like, okay, it's probably dehydration. So immediately, you know, salted up my water, got my sodium in. I, you know, got, I think it was like 4 or 5 litres of water into me, so rehydrated, like quite drastically. But the key thing is putting the salt in, because then you don't overhydrate and then flush out all the good stuff that you need. Okay. Got up the next day, and again, like there was a bit of a feeling there, but my vision was pretty much back.
Okay.
And I think that's the thing with, like, you know, we're not designed to cut water, and this is why when you see it in sports like, you know, you go to MMA or the UFC or boxing, water cutting is super dangerous for them athletes as much as it is for a bodybuilder, because, you know, unless you're taking things that allow you to cut the water out of certain areas, a lot of the water is going to go out, say, like your brain, or it's going to affect your body. Yeah.
No, I can see that, and I think that's another thing for people that are trying to do severe cuts and stuff. You see them, you know, with sweatsuits on, doing all this exercise, and it's not healthy. That's got to do damage. It doesn't just drop the number off the scales for free. There's a repercussion of it. Yeah. But I'll wrap it up. There's a question that I have always wondered. Yeah. When it comes to bodybuilding, you go and get a rather substantial spray tan before you go onto stage. My question is, how long does that last?
Probably laugh. I've got a story around this, but it probably lasts about a week. But you get like 2 or 3 days post comp where you've got like the most amazing tan, and then by the end of the week you look like a tiger bread roll, because it like comes off in different places at different times. But a story is my first comp. Like the way it happens, or the way I've always had it happen for me, is it's the day before you'll go and you'll get your spray done. So they put 2 coats on. Mm-hmm. And you've got to wear like baggy clothing, and like you can't wash your body, wash your hair, anything like that. Like, there's real strict rules for a reason they give you around it. But then so anyway, I went away that night. Me and my best mate, we went out for some food. Firstly, like sitting in central London, spray tanned up, and you know, having food. And I remember this waiter really struggled with me, because it's like he's looking at me. It's like he's got these white guy facial features, but he's not white. I don't know why. It was like I could tell I really freaked this guy out. Like, yeah. And then the next day, where it's in central London, we were right by the Natural History Museum. Mm-hmm. So George, my best mate, who you know, and him being like, he's the only person I've ever known being like, do you want to go to the Natural History Museum? Yeah. And I've like meant like, this is the one where my eyesight's gone. I can't see anything. I'm mentally checked out. And it's like, if this is gonna make your day, we'll go and do this. And I'm walking around this Natural History Museum. People looking at me like, is he part of the exhibit? Like, what is this guy? Like, I get a lot of people like taking photos of me. Like, what is it? So I've got down to the comp a bit earlier, and like, so it's the same place I'm competing at on Sunday. Yeah. But you effectively go like under the stage, and there's this like dungeon area really where like all the competitors go. So I've got in there early, seen the spray tan lady, and I've got these. So I've got my comp pants, I've got these track bottoms on. Mm-hmm. I pulled up the track bottoms. They can only go up to there, but she's looking and she's like, okay, yeah, all the tan there from like, say that level down looks good. I've taken off my top. Now the only place I can't show her is like in and around that area. Yeah. So she's like, yeah, looks good. Anyway, sat there chilling, probably about 30 minutes before I've got to go out. And I've gone to put on the competition pants. As I've gone to put them on, like on the side of my leg, there is a white mark in the shape of something, and the first thing I can think is my mum is here, like in the front row. And I'm like, I do not want her to, because you are really really dark on stage, and then there's going to be this white mark in the shape. So I'm like, I've got to find this lady quick, and I'm sprinting around backstage looking for the spray tan lady, and I'm like, if I can't get her, if she can't like spray me up now, I'm not going out on stage, because I've put in 9 months of hard work to get to this position, but I'd rather just not compete than like the embarrassment I'm going to face the rest of my life. Like particularly like when you have the photos, if they get put into magazines or whatever. Anyway, she's like, spray tanned me. Just before you go onto stage, they put on this thing on your body called glow.
Right.
So you are like a very dark brown. They put this like glow gloss on your body just before you go out, and within 10 seconds you go from a very dark brown to like black.
Yeah.
But then, you go on, you look great, you come off, and it's that night in the shower, you jump into the shower, and it's when that like glow comes off and you just got the spray tan, and it looks like something out of a horror movie, because you look down at the water and all of this water is just like black, and depending on like if you're in a bath or whatever, it builds up, and it can look like quite scary.
Yeah, because I didn't know about this thing glow, so I thought that's genuinely what you had to be like for a week. Yeah. And I can imagine anyway that you'd get a lot of looks with a dark tan, but at that level would be particularly interesting. That's one of the things that I think I wouldn't want to do. If I like I said, I don't think I'm going to get into bodybuilding, but the fake tan thing to me has always been really, really funny. But I mean, you need it because the light on the stage is really showing the definition.
Yeah, so you don't get washed out.
So you don't want to look like a white t-shirt when you're on there. But no, I was going to say a little bit of an announcement, because I haven't said it on the Mindsets podcast Instagram page or TikTok or anything like that. Now that I'm back from Asia, one of the things I want to do is I want to continue doing the podcast, but I want to move some more content onto the YouTube channel. So what I'd like to do is train with some of the people to make a mockery of myself for the people watching, but to demonstrate the way that different people train, things that you might be able to learn, tips and tricks, but also show that something might be really hard, because as a person that has, I'm pretty comfortable in my fitness level. If I was to go and train with Stevie, I'm sure I'd get put through my paces, and a lot of people that go, oh, bodybuilding's not that hard, or I don't know, training as an NFL D lineman or the Paralympic cyclist that we've spoken to, oh, maybe that's really hard. And if I can show that, it's actually achievable for someone watching or listening, or in fact, stop mocking them because it's not that easy, I think would be something that's quite entertaining, and I'm very willing to make myself the guinea pig.
Does the 6-month diet cut come in part of this?
Unlikely, I think, is the answer to that. I think right now, having got back from Asia and rediscovered cheese, there's a low likelihood of me of getting on a 6-month cut for now. But I'll definitely hit you up. Obviously, you've got your competition coming up in a week, so best of luck for that.
Thank you.
And maybe after that, when you go into more of a bulking phase, I'll come and join you, and we could do a session. We can have a catch up. Hopefully, you'll be approaching, if not have gathered, your pro card.
So that could be this again. So this weekend's the European Championships in London. Competing in men's physique and classic physique. If I get top 3, I qualify for the World Championships in Toronto in November. If I win either of them categories, I get my pro card there and then. So the goal is to get my pro card this year. Yeah. And then there's some other news coming out around that post whether my 1 competition or 2 competitions this year is done.
Well, very exciting, and I'm sure that based on the people that will be listening, you're going to have some new following and some new fans. Where can they find you and show some support?
I think it's literally called Stevie Warr with no spaces, but I don't really
I'll put it in the bio, whatever it is.
Thank you.
And yeah, people can pay attention, see how you get on, maybe even turn up in person and give you a couple woo while you're out there. But I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. I've learned a lot more about you, which is one of the reasons that I love doing this. I've learned a lot of different lessons from how you approach gym and your training, and I'm hoping that the people listening have as well. For anyone listening that has just stumbled upon the podcast, we are at Mindsets Podcast with an underscore between the two, so Mindsets_podcast on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of that. So if you would like to drop us a follow, it'd be greatly appreciated. Give it a share, let your friends know, and see where we can take this thing. Is there anything you would like to plug?
No, it's just thank you for having me. It's Been
an
good.
absolute pleasure, mate. And hopefully I will catch up with you again in future and you can put me through the paces.
Sounds good to me.
Nice one. All right, everyone, take care and we'll catch you in the next episode.